Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Innovation Cafe. So this is something new that I'm trying out this year. Normally I would have written either an article on LinkedIn or done a presentation to our teams about emerging technologies that are going to make a major impact in the coming years. But this time I thought I'll try something slightly different and created this video podcast. So the idea was that this first episode I would speak to you about 5 themes that I think will play a major role in emerging technologies in 2021. And then, if this is successful, then subsequent episodes I could dig deeper into individual themes or pick out specific topics or issues within those themes. With that in mind, I hope you're ready to get underway and let me speak to you about these 5 themes. So, the first theme that I wanted to talk to you about is improving AI. So, AI has been around in the market now for some time, and I think people are generally gotten used to hearing about AI and understand to some extent what AI is capable of doing. And AI is also doing a lot of wonderful things now for businesses. Adoption is slightly slower than expected, but is still picking up in quite a drastic way. But there are still some areas where it can certainly develop, and that's what I thought I'll just touch on very briefly. So, one area where I know that there is room to improve is on the use of data. Now, AI is very sensitive to the type of data that is used to train those algorithms, and so there needs to be this huge, vast amounts of petabytes worth of data that companies have to aggregate together, and that to make sure that the data is in really good quality before AI algorithms can really start utilizing this data to generate some value out. Now that puts a lot of burden on companies. They have to spend vast amounts to try to bring all of this data together, have a process to cleanse that data, and so on, which is quite an expensive process to go through. So one of the challenges I think that we will start seeing companies trying to overcome is to reduce the amount of data that's needed to train an AI algorithm and it's yet achieve the same kind of success and results out. The other area, I guess, is around bias. So we've seen in the media about, for example, in computer vision, when you're doing face recognition systems, they're not able to detect darker color skin tones as well as they can lighter color skin tones. So, and this kind of bias exists all over the place, and it's all because the systems are dependent really on the type of data that is used to train those algorithms with. So that bias is something that companies are also trying to fix and work through and come up with solutions to improve. The other area which I don't think is really well documented or talked about, but I think there needs to be some work done on even measuring how good an AI algorithm actually is. So going back a number of years now, during my research days, we used to have to measure every algorithm that we create and compare against different types of algorithms. And we used to use simple metrics such as precision and recall to measure how good the AI algorithm actually is. So once you have these two metrics, you can then compare multiple algorithms, plot charts, and also test them against various benchmarks to see which algorithm performs the best way. And I don't see why the same kind of logic can't be applied into a business problem as well. But of course, it does depend on you having the right benchmark, the right data sets, and different organizations producing the same kind of metrics to compare these algorithms with. But I'm sure that's something that will come in the near future, because as consumers start to adopt more and more of AI, we need the ability to also understand which AI algorithm is better than which other one. So this also I feel is an area that will develop in the coming years. But overall, AI as a technology has come a long way. Now there's enough compute power, storage is cheap to be able to use all the right data sets. Even the algorithms themselves are actually improving all the time. And if you just look at Let's take AWS and Azure, for example, and Google. These cloud technologies have been bringing in new AI algorithms or pretty much almost every month. And I think that trend is going to just continue in the next year, and we'll see a lot more innovation coming through in the space of AI. So the next theme that I wanted to talk to you about was a combination of IoT, edge computing, and 5G coming together to generate value. Now, this is already, in fact, is in the market. This year, we've seen a lot more adoption in, for example, in smart manufacturing, where this capability has allowed us to measure performance of different machinery, for example, and do proactive maintenance. In other words, you try and find when a particular system is going to go bad and go and fix it before the issue actually arises. And this same concept has been applied in a lot of industries, where the data together has enabled us to create a digital twin for a physical object, which means that we can do a lot more simulations to test what could happen in certain scenarios, but also to give much better service, such as preventative maintenance we saw in manufacturing. The same is being done, for example, in housing markets, where buildings have become smarter, and you're able to look at pressure sensors in a bridge, for example, to see where if it's likely to collapse or any dangerous hazards are about to occur. So all of this kind of preventative maintenance is a really big key. And the other part is about decision making, of course. The more data you have about the environment, the better you can assess how it's performing. And I'll take a quick example in a water industry, for example, the water that's coming into our homes. A lot of companies now use sensors that measure the quality of the water throughout the process, from where the water originates all the way through the purification process through to the end homes. Now, this means that you can now start to see if there are any leakages, firstly, in the process, and if there has been any infiltration of bacteria or any contamination that comes into the water system. So pretty much every industry is actually benefiting from this combination of IoT, edge, and 5G. And I think we'll see a lot more of this in the coming years. Of course, with this comes other areas of concern as well. For example, security. How do you make sure that all of these devices are secure in nature? How do you maintain them? How do you make sure that you're able to control access to these systems and gather the data in a secure way? Which brings me nicely on to the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which is distributed cloud. Now, the whole concept of distributed cloud is that we're moving away from the earlier analogy of you having a public cloud and a private cloud. So until now, public and private cloud have been completely separate entities, one running in a shared environment, which might be co-host multiple organizations' data and services, and the private cloud being completely owned and managed by yourself as an organization. Now, the whole concept of the distributed cloud comes in, where you bring in your private cloud, your edge devices, your IoT devices. All of these components need to all be managed, and if they are all being looked at separately, then it puts a lot more burden on the support and management teams. So if you had the ability that you have a single pane of glass, single support team that's able to look after all of these stack, including IoT, edge, private, and public clouds, that would be a really powerful capability. And this is what a lot of companies have already started working on now. And I think we'll start seeing this come more and more in 2021 and possibly beyond. So the next two themes were going to be more focused on the outcome that the technology generates rather than the technology itself. So the first of which is actually sustainability. Now, over the last few years, I think as a planet, we've become much more aware of how we are using the resources within the planet, and all governments and companies are taking very positive steps to try and make the technology adoption much more sustainable in nature. We've seen this in, for example, the CO2 emissions regulations that have come in, the impact on automobile industry and trying to reduce the impact on diesel and petrol cars and bring more energy efficient cars such as electric or solar powered. So we've seen this trend come through in a number of industries, and we've also seen research. Bloomberg, for example, did a research recently that showed that 73% of Gen Z people actually would pay much more to buy a product that is sustainable in nature than, say, in a few years ago. So we're seeing a change in consumer behavior, we're seeing a change in regulation, and I think we will see a lot more of this again in the coming years ahead. And the last theme that I wanted to touch on was the impact of COVID. Now, of course, we're living at a time now where everything has changed. We're staying apart. We're working from home. We're communicating with loved ones through technology, and this has had a number of impact areas in a number of ways. So in 2021, I think there are a few areas where certainly we will start seeing some technology adoption. Of course, one is how do we start bringing people to come back into the office in a safe manner? How do we ensure that the vaccines are distributed to everybody in a secure way? How do we track which individuals have received the vaccines and which haven't, so that we're able to open up travel and office space, etc., to those individuals. So we may start seeing a digital passport, for example, a health passport that is a record for every individual. I mean, there are lots of possibilities, and I'm sure we will start seeing a lot more technology adoptions come through in 21 that are all related in some form or the other to the COVID pandemic. So with that, I'd like to close for today, but I'll just do a quick recap. We spoke about 5 themes. They were improving AI, the impact of combination of IoT, 5G, and edge computing. It was distributed cloud. We saw sustainability, and finally the impact of COVID. These were the 5 themes, and hopefully in the future we'll do more of these kind of episodes that delve deeper into one of these 5 themes. And if you have any feedback, please let me know either as a comment or just directly send me a message. And if there are any specific topics that would be great to hear about, then please again let me know. And thank you very much, and I hope you have a lovely Christmas and a happy New Year ahead. Bye bye for now.